Hello and welcome back to the LFC transfer room. Today we have an expert analysis on Southampton's Romeo Lavia. We are joined by Saint Space's host, Saint Rob, or Rob on Twitter. Rob is going to be giving us the expert analysis on Romeo Lavia and if he would be a good addition to Liverpool this summer. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jack and Rob. So enjoy the video, guys.
Okay, so I guess just kind of to start broadest, so his arrival this past season, it's kind of his first season here. What kind of was it like? Kind of walk me through just the overall first impressions and kind of the first season for Romeo.
So with Lavia, obviously we bought him in from Man City, from City's academy. Now Lavia, this is his first season in full senior football. So it was always a big risk. That's one of the things which our ownership have done last summer, which has led to our demise, frankly, in the Premier League, is signing young players with very little senior experience, let alone Premier League level experience. So we didn't really know all too much about Lavia. Obviously, you get the comps from the academy and whatnot, but you can't really make a full picture of him just from academy games, of course, until you step up to senior level. We bought him in for around about £10 million. A lot of people, were thinking at the time, 10 million for a player with no real senior experience, especially in the Premier League, is a little, very risky as such. But it was obvious from the first game, really, against Tottenham Hotspur away, that we had something special here. In that game, we lost 4-1. But as you'll come to find with Southampton, scorelines don't really reflect individual performances. Lavia was up against Bentancur. Basuma, I think, was playing that game, and obviously Højbjerg, who's a fully fledged international with Denmark, and he was the best midfielder on that pitch. There was a moment in the second half where he dropped a shoulder and turned two Spurs fans with his face to goal, just outside our 18-yard box, and you kind of thought, wow, okay, we seriously have something good here. Obviously, you have to remember he's only 18 years old, plenty of room to grow. But from the first couple of games in the season, Lavia was just exceptional. Progressive passing. He was used in a Ralph Hasenhüttl side in a 4-2-2 as a double pivot next to James Ward-Prowse. Lavia was our anchor. He was the one breaking up the play. Lavia was the one also trusted by Ralph and every manager we've had since to progress play and be our progressive passer. He's the only player which we really had that could safely and accurately pass in between the lines consistently. To get it into our wide number 10s or even into the feet of a striker. It was very obvious that he was very athletic. He's very quick over ground, very, very rapid. And somehow, I don't know how, but somehow his feet always end up on the ball. Very crucial part of Lavia's season this year was Chelsea at home, where we won 2-1. He scored in that game. I believe he scored to make it. He scored to make it 1-1. Ball came out to the edge of the box. I'm sure everyone's seen the goal, and he bent it into Mendy's near post from just outside the box. But in that game, he ended up picking up a hamstring injury, which was crucial for our season, that led him to be out for a number of weeks, a number of months. In that time period, we really missed him, and it was very obvious when you look at the statistics, when you look at, even our form. It just fell off a complete cliff. And what we were seeing is we were seeing that players like Ainsley Maitland-Niles, who even played under our Jose Mourinho team for Roma in the Conference League or the Europa League a season before, couldn't live up to the standard of Romeo Lavia. Ainsley Maitland-Niles is almost 7 years his senior, 8 years his senior, and he couldn't do the things that Lavia was doing. We really missed him for those months. And when he came back just before the international break for the World Cup and after it, we just looked so much more solid. One thing about Lavia is we had to manage his minutes quite a lot as well. Obviously, young lad, 18 years old, first year of senior football. Obviously, he picked up that injury, a couple of slight injuries here and there. But I don't think that's anything too crazy, especially if he was to join Liverpool. When Bajcetic comes back, he'll be able to rotate them, I'm sure. But yeah, Lavia, for me, in his first season, would win our player of the season if we were doing awards this year, hands down. I think it's not fair for people to say, why are we signing a defensive midfielder from one of the worst defensive teams in the league? You can't pin that all on an 18-year-old. Trust me, when you read this and listen to this, Liverpool fans, there's much wider problems at Saints than Romeo Lavia. He's just exceptional, and for him to get called up to the Belgian national team after not even playing 9 months of senior football at Premier League level, it just says it all. He will be, if you can sign him, I promise you'll see what I see in him. You'll see what every Saints fan sees in him. The kid is exceptional. He will go all the way, in my opinion. He'll go all the way.
Some great insight there. I kind of want to pick on a few things. You mentioned kind of in that double pivot with James Ward-Prowse. Is that his best role, or was that kind of based on the needs of, or at least early on in Hassel, who you mentioned, was that kind of tactically based, or was that kind of almost where you would best see him and his play style?
I think, obviously, if you look at Liverpool's system of a 4-3-3, obviously under Ralph, we played a 4-2-2. Under Ruben Sellers, we played a 4-2-2. But what we saw consistently is us moving into a 4-3-3 with the ball and sometimes without. In my opinion, in my personal opinion, I think he works better as a single pivot. As a lone number 6, I just think he can dictate play. You have 2 players in front of him, giving him a little bit more protection, but he can just lay the ball off too. Now, James Ward-Prowse is more of a creator, more of a free role. Lavia was definitely the anchor, almost working as a lone 6 in that pivot, while James Ward-Prowse was kind of given, respect to go forward and to play almost as a number 10 at times. But in my opinion, his best role is a lone 6. He has the athleticism for it. As I said, he can cover ground. He can keep the ball. He's probably the most press-resistant player I've seen play for Saints since the days of Morgan Schneiderlin, who at his peak was an amazing player. Yeah, as a lone 6, I'd say that's probably where Liverpool in your system would want to play him, basically where Fabinho is now.
So you hit on I want to dig a bit more into the expectations, kind of,
Yeah, absolutely.
When he came in, and you already mentioned just there wasn't a ton that you knew about him. Was it just instantaneous in that Spurs match that it was almost a complete switch, or I guess every Saints fan knew, all right, this guy's it, or was it kind of a more progressive thing over the next couple matches, couple weeks, or was it just instantaneous like that?
So you could definitely, in that Spurs match, obviously we lost 4-1, right? So everyone was kind of seething at the performance. First game of the season, we lose 4-1, but you could see that there was definitely a player in there. Obviously, when you go away to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, you are under pressure, especially when they were good at the start of the year. It was the game after that against Leeds where we drew 2-2. And I know he's up against like Marco Rocca, Aronson. Their midfield's good. It's not insane, but it's good. But for an 18-year-old to stand out against those types of players was huge for us. He absolutely ran the show. It was ridiculous. So the hype kind of went up from Spurs and Saints fans were like, okay, this is a really good player we got here. Let's see how he gets on. Obviously, he's only 18, could just have a good couple games and then drop off. But it was that Chelsea game where he got injured. If you go back, you'll find compilations of that game on YouTube, Twitter, whatever. Go back and have a little look, because he was up against some big players. Mason Mount, I know probably not the most informed player, but still for an 18-year-old to come up against the midfield of the likes of Kovacic as well. I think Kante might have been playing in that game. I can't 100% remember, but he absolutely ran the show, whoever he was up against, and he consistently did that throughout the season. Obviously, we have to remember as well, for Saints fans, it's not hard to be the best player in our team. You just have to be quite competent. So I think if he moves into a team with a lot of superstars, obviously like a Big Six club, he could potentially get lost. But seeing the way that your fans hyped up Besetic a lot, I think that's how you pronounce it, before his ACL, unfortunately, Lavia's, from what I've seen this year, I think Lavia is a much better player. But if he's given the protection around him, from for the likes of McAllister, or the other midfielders you sign in this year, and especially with having players like Van Dijk behind him, I think he'll shine and he'll really bleed through.
And kind of looking at what he would do next. Obviously, the relegation changes the plan. Obviously, with Southampton, let's focus kind of on the player first. You mentioned kind of could potentially get lost in a team with a lot of big superstars around him. What would you say? You're almost the advisor for the player. You're talking to him. You're saying this is the move you should make. This is what he should do. Do you have any kind of insight into what would make sense for him for this next upcoming season or next few seasons for his development? Considering that this isn't just a Liverpool only question. It could be any top club that sign him. He's not going to come in with a guaranteed spot versus kind of being the guy at Southampton. What kind of would be your perspective on that?
So when you look to this summer, now it's really important. Last summer we got Lavia, as I said, for 10 million, but Man City next summer have a 40 mil buyback, and they also have a first refusal, which kicks in this summer as well. So the buyback is next summer, first refusal is this summer. So if he comes in and clubs are coming for him, obviously City will get the option to buy him first. Whether they do that with Rodri, who's only 26, I highly doubt. And if I'm Lavia, I probably want to go back to City and prove myself in that first team. But I don't see him being able to take that spot from Rodri, of course. He's just had such an excellent season, probably one of the best, if not the best DM in the world. When you look at the clubs who need a number 6, you look at, as you mentioned, Liverpool. Fabinho is slowing down, probably do with a good bit of competition there, who obviously you can rotate with Fabinho and Lavia so they don't get too tired. You look at Chelsea, really keen on him. Important to note with Chelsea is they have a guy called Joe Shields, who you might be aware of, is one of their heads of recruitment. Joe Shields had a stint at Saints over the summer before he went to Chelsea. He joined us in June, July time. Got Romeo Lavia over here. I mean, we were already going to sign him without Joe Shields. But Joe Shields came from City's academy, brought the likes of Lavia over with him or helped bring them over, and then went off to Chelsea. And then 3 weeks later from when he left, on deadline day, they put in a £50 million bid for him. So I'm sure Chelsea are very keen. Joe Shields was the guy who brought him from the academy in Belgium to Man City's academy. So that's definitely something that you want to note. Man United, I think Casemiro's got that spot locked down. If I'm Lavia, I could even look abroad. I mean, Busquets has just retired for Barcelona. He could do a job there, in my opinion, or do a decent job in La Liga. He'd suit that league. But if we're talking Prem, I think Liverpool would be in a very good position to buy him. If you stick with a 4-3-3 formation, that would be nice. Give him some protection from 2-8s in front and obviously the back two behind. Yeah, I'd say out of all the clubs, Chelsea are just too inconsistent at the moment. I think they would beat you financially for him, and it looks like we value him around 40 to 50 million, which obviously is a big money for a 19-year-old who's just been relegated. But yeah, I think if I'm the advisor to Lavia, I think you want to look at somewhere which is going to give him consistent game time. The Belgian squad was released today. He wasn't in that team, so you want to find somewhere that can give him consistent game time so we can get back into that. Whether that changes with Liverpool when Bajcetic comes back, I'm not sure. But as I said, I think Lavia would prove himself before Bajcetic comes back from injury. Obviously, Kante looks like he's going to be leaving Chelsea. Obviously, he's not really a number 6; he's a number 8. But with Kovacic going as well, they're going to have gaps in their midfield. So Chelsea could make sense as well. Obviously, with Joe Shields being there as well. So I think it would be if I was the advisor to Lavia, I'd say it would be between Chelsea and Liverpool. I don't think there's any point in mentioning Spurs or the likes of Newcastle in this. To be fair, if Newcastle came in, he'd do really well. Can move Bruno forward. But if we're talking big 6 clubs, proper big 6 clubs, then yeah, between Liverpool and Chelsea, and at the end of the day, it's going to be whichever one can stump up the most cash if it comes down to a bidding war.
And before I want to jump to some other stuff, the logistics of that buyback. So just to reiterate, it's buyback summer 24. This summer, it's a case of if Liverpool put in a bid for £50 million, City could say no, like we want to pay that, and they have to negotiate with City.
I believe that the buyback is next summer. It's always like 2 years. So when we bought Livramento from Chelsea, his buyback could be activated this summer. And I believe it's the same with Lavia from the Athletic. First refusals are a little bit different. They're not as like crystal clear. I would assume that City, I mean, if they get wind of Lavia being sold for 40-50 million, I'm sure that they will have something to say about that. I'm sure he's liked at Man City. They obviously know him. Pep spoke about him an awful lot in his post and pre-match press conferences when we played them this year. But I think with that buyback, that could be quite crucial. I mean, a season in the Championship definitely wouldn't be the worst thing for Lavia. He'd get used to the English game, but he's so far above that level that it wouldn't really be fair to him, to be honest with you. And I think he knows that. But yeah, so I'm sure City, even if the first refusal can be activated next summer, I'm sure this summer they will have something to say if bids are accepted and whatnot. I'm sure
that makes sense. And just kind of in terms of that logic, as a Southampton fan yourself, are you hoping that he stays for another year, or are you hoping that some cash is brought in for him? Because you mentioned like you very clearly value, the player side of things and that what you think is best for him. But for you, for the team, obviously having a talented player is better. What is kind of your perspective on what you hope happens with him from your perspective?
Yeah, so obviously he's been our best player this year. He's as I said earlier, he's a really good kid. He understands what it means to wear the shirt countless times last year. I go home and away with Saints. countless times last year. He's the first player over to the away fans, and he's the first player around clapping the home fans. He understands what it means to wear the shirt. There were times where he's been tapping the badge. Sorry, it's here. But I'd love to see him stay another year. I think if City say to him and say to us, look, we've got a plan for you. Next summer we'll activate that buyback. Just stay with Saints for now. We'll activate the buyback when it comes in next summer. I'd love it. I mean, we would if we had Lavia in the Championship. There's no doubt in my mind that we'd win the league unless he gets injured. He's the game changer for us in terms of how we play, and especially if you look at a new manager come in, Russell Martin, possession-based manager. Lavia would absolutely thrive in that position. I think from a monetary point of view, if we sell him, obviously we have FFP restrictions in the Championship, much tighter than the Premier League. I believe Saints would probably have to sell around about 40 to 50 million pounds worth of players, or assets rather, to kind of stay within FFP and be able to spend the money which we need to do to get back up. Obviously, we hopefully would be able to reinvest that money if it wasn't too tight on FFP. But I'd, for the sake of 40 mil, when, if we keep him this summer and he does amazing things in the Championship and we get promoted and then we sell him to City for 40 million that summer, I wouldn't care. I'd rather him stay now and we don't get 50, 60 million for him, rather than, we would stay up, we would go up and then we just sell him for 40 the next summer, which is still huge profit. We're still 4 timesing our money on a player that we've had for 2 years, right? So, but I think as you said, from a career perspective for him, he'll want to get back into that Belgium national team. I doubt he does that in the Championship, but he's a contracted player with Saints. There's no release clause in his contract that doesn't activate till next year. If no decent bids come in for him, then why would we sell, right? But unless he forces a move, but I think that would be quite out of character for him from what we've seen in interviews. So yeah, we'll just see what happens. It's the same case as Lavia as it is with other players that we got, Bella Kotchap, Charlie Alcaraz. We have the same issue with loads of different players. But I, for one, hope that he stays. However unlikely that, of course, may be, because he's probably going to go to a Big Six club in the next couple of weeks or so.
And one of the last things I kind of wanted to just pick on is meant to ask a bit earlier, just his best attributes. When you think about him as a player and you're describing him, best attributes for him.
So, yeah, I mean, how long have you got, really? I think he's incredibly tenacious, I find. He's very aggressive in the way that he goes about his work as a number 6. He's always running. He always just takes up the right positions. As I said, he has a real knack for being able to just take the ball out from someone's feet. Now, Lavia hasn't really had any disciplinary issues, to be honest with you. There was a couple of times at the start of the season where he'd face up to like James Maddison, who's quite a character. But he's tenacious. He cares. Like, he genuinely cares about Saints. I'm sure of it. Just the way that he acts and respects the club and the fans, he cares. And that for me is huge. In terms of, if we're talking on the ball, as I said earlier, his progressive passing is the best in our team by some margin. He can find the lines, but also his dribbling as well. He's so agile on the ball. As I said, he's so press resistant. It doesn't matter, what corner of the pitch is. If he's facing his own net, he will take it around 2 or 3 players. He's that guy who can just take it around players with ease. He's got that natural ability, and I think that will shine in a system like Liverpool's. As I said, as you can probably tell, I absolutely love the kid. I think he's going to do amazing things in this sport, whether that's in England or elsewhere. But I said in a recent tweet, I've seen fans from Chelsea, Liverpool, United, whoever's linked with him, talking about, why are we signing Lavia? He's got issues, he's got problems. I'll tell you what, he's just been playing for the worst team in the league with very little protection around him. If you put him into a Big Six team, he will shine. He'll do wonders for you. I think 40 to 50 million is an absolute steal for the amount of potential that this lad has. And I have no doubt in my mind, if we stayed up, we'd probably be asking for about 70. He's that good.
Anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
Hope he stays. but no, if you get him, just enjoy him. Obviously treat him with respect, be nice to him. He's a good kid, but I really hope he stays. But however unlikely that may be, but it's been a pleasure to watch him play for Saints over the last couple of months. And as I mentioned, if we were doing player awards this year, it wouldn't shock me at all if he won player of the year. He'd be my player of the season easily, and that goes for about 50-60% of Saints fans as well.
Thank you so much to Rob for joining us today. Make sure you go in the description below and give Rob a follow on his Twitter. But do you think Romeo Lavia would be a good addition to Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool this summer? If you do, make sure you go in the comments below and leave your thoughts. Also, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a bunch. But I've been Charlie. This has been the LFC Transfer Room, and thank you for watching.